I never dreamt that the people who would steal it from us would then take it to Asia, and then all of a sudden, our technology would be taught to the Chinese.
China's the number one intellectual property thief.
My face is getting redder and redder and redder and redder. And I said, this cannot be.
They took that, they educated their staff, and then eventually those engineers took the technology to Asia.
And we are no longer building our innovation economy like we used to. And those chickens are coming home to roost.
Imagine this, Dave's sitting at his desk, reading at this paper, and every block diagram I see, and every word I'm reading, my face is getting redder and redder and redder and redder. And I said, this cannot be.
I never dreamt that the people who would steal it from us would then take it to Asia, and then all of a sudden, our technology would be taught to the Chinese. This technology is in the heart of every Chinese wireless chip. It didn't get there by itself. It got there by people who had taken it from us, teaching them how these technologies work. Maybe they did that so they could get business in China, but I can tell you now, the competition is fierce because we've taught the Chinese how our own intellectual property works.
You're willfully taking whatever you want, particularly from small companies, because the system today makes them very vulnerable, right? We thought our patents would protect us. That's why we were pretty free with giving the information. I think I went from very mad to what's next.
Qualcomm was the first one. They had used Parker Vision proprietary technology to package all these RF functions along with a baseband chip into effectively a phone on a chip. And their engineers, as can be proven with various documentation, used Parker Vision technology, learned from us how to do this. They took that, they educated their staff, and then eventually those engineers took the technology to Asia and Europe.
We had told our board of directors where we thought this technology could go. And when I look back on those presentations, they were pretty accurate. What we didn't anticipate was we would have no way of protecting it and no way of keeping it from being stolen. And to add insult to injury, had no clue that the people who would take it from us would then take it to Asia, and that it would be stolen by the Chinese, who now are building products with our technology in it, and we have no way of stopping them. And even those companies who stole it from us now are trying to compete against a rising threat from China, and it's getting more difficult by the year.
Here's what you can do. You can do your own research. Go to the Center for Strategic and International Studies. They're a think tank that goes off and actually gathers facts on all this stuff. And you can find out that 90% of the intellectual property theft is committed by China, one way or another, and some of it's actual espionage.
I don't know how much stuff China's stealing, but I'll tell you one of the issues I have is we're allowing American companies to steal, right? I mean, the China issue is one thing. We expect them to steal it. But for the government to open the door and make it easier for our own companies to steal our own inventions, I think is absolutely wrong.
It's one thing to think about competing against low-cost labor, but for us to give away our advanced technologies to the Chinese, it is the ultimate insult to the American dream. And in fact, if you think about how we're going to compete in the future, many startup companies who do the kind of work that Parker Vision did to develop these technologies are gone now. You know why they're gone? They're gone because these large companies have abused the patent system, have taken the technologies to Asia, and you can't get these companies funded anymore. You know, it's one thing to talk about bringing chips back to the United States. If you don't have technologies and products to put on those chips, what good is that? It's not just having manufacturing. It's having new ideas and products developed by innovators that are going to feed those semiconductor fabs. Look, the ultimate loser when we allow companies to take our technology and give it to the Chinese is America. So when I think about America and the American dream and how it's always stimulated innovation and the world leadership that's allowed the United States to enjoy. Look, I've been doing this long enough that I have worked in the patent system when it worked and now when it's pretty broken. And in fact, I even say rigged against innovators. When it worked back in the 80s, when we had our air conditioning control systems, we actually encountered some infringing situations. A phone call to the general counsel and proof of our patents, and we didn't even have to file a lawsuit. They pulled those products off the market and we were done. That's when the system worked, and it made America profitable, and it made America growth oriented, and it gave little companies like us an opportunity to become a medium company and a big company. Today, the system is so rigged against innovators. Well, unfortunately, the bargain's only being held up by one side. It's the innovator. Here, I take out a patent. I teach my innovation. But guess what? There's no sheriff in town to defend my patents anymore.
Semiconductor technology, wireless technology, information technology, software, all of this stuff has been ripped off and taken to China. So if you're a small innovator, your stuff can be taken from China.
So when I think about our technology being in almost all the wireless products shipping today, I also think of it being in a lot of Asian companies' products, a lot of Chinese companies, Taiwanese companies, and I've thought, how did our technology get there? Well, in some instances, we've been able to see that the leadership in those companies who design radio chips actually were taken from people who were employed by companies like Qualcomm in China. Those companies now are eating away at market share, chipping away. In fact, I think a recent report shows that MediaTek in Taiwan now has the largest volume of smartphone chips shipping worldwide today. So for the United States to think that there aren't implications in U.S. companies not respecting other U.S. companies' intellectual property and then taking it overseas, that's a fool's mission. The United States has been a world leader in innovation almost from the inception of this country. The patent system was written into the original Constitution. It's not even an amendment. It was in the original Constitution. The Founding Fathers understood you can't have a country of kings and queens and lead the world in leadership. Everybody has to be pitching in. All people have to be rowing the oars. The way you get that from small innovators is by protecting their inventions. Our patent system doesn't do that anymore. You cannot have world leadership with yesterday's technology. The only way you're going to sustain world leadership is with having the best technology that leads the world, that gives us the defense we want, the technologies we need, and the leadership that everybody wants to buy technologies and products from the United States.
So Qualcomm trained engineers how to use this technology to create chips that performed all these radio functions, and then later those guys got hired by other companies, and you can follow through LinkedIn and look at their resumes and see that, well, okay, I left Qualcomm, I went to work for another company in Taiwan or in China or wherever, and the technology and the skill that they developed at Qualcomm went with them, and they've enabled companies all over the world to do what they learned at Qualcomm.
The reality of it is, from what we've seen, the technology of ours that they took hasn't been advanced since they've been using it over a decade ago. It's the same technology. What's sad about that is the inventors of the technology have already shown me multiple versions of it that are even better, that give even better performance, lower cost, less power consumption. But Qualcomm hasn't advanced that technology. It's just a copy and repeat, copy and repeat. This is why the balance between having small innovators and big incumbents working together. In order for the United States to have the goal of making America great again, it has to have the best innovation economy and the best leadership in the world. You cannot have a leading superpower position in the world if you have a lagging innovation economy. Right now, China is cleaning our clock because we've allowed these companies to steal innovation, take it to China, and now the Chinese are making their own products from those innovations, and we are no longer building our innovation economy like we used to. and those chickens are coming home to roost.